Welcome back, MTN Giants podcast. Another embarrassing one, a 49-17 loss to the Dallas Cowboys. Wasn't as bad as week one, I guess, but it feels just as bad. You know, it's like you were hoping with a 17-point spread you can maybe compete, and yeah, it was 7-0. Like in the early second quarter, the Giants got the interception. They had a chance. They were near the Dallas end zone. They ran that stupid read option play on 4th and 3. Where, yeah, maybe they could have kicked the field goal, made it 7-3, but I don't mind going for it. But to run a read option there, they even panned to Tommy DeVito's dad, and you can like kind of read his lips saying, "Why would you run that on 4th and 3?" And you know, it is what it is. Even if they scored a touchdown there, this probably would have been a blowout anyway. Dallas scored 21 unanswered points in the second quarter. And that's pretty much where the game got away. It was 28-0 at halftime. The Giants did get a touchdown in the second half, well, two actually. So, you know, I guess it could have been worse, but, you know, still an embarrassing effort either way. Only 86 passing yards for DeVito. Had the interception where he threw it to double coverage, which, you know, I don't mind taking a shot, but still. Saquon had a good game statistics-wise, only 13 carries. As I said in the pregame, if this game gets away from them, it's tough to give Saquon 30 carries if you're down by 30 points. So only 13 carries, but 66 yards, over 5 a carry. Even DeVito had 7 carries for 41 yards, but passing the ball-wise, it was ugly. You had the late touchdown to Sterling Shepard, which was it was nice to see. You know, longest tenured Giant gets in the end zone, so that was cool. But Bellinger had that big catch on the final drive, but really nothing else. I mean, it feels like as the losses pile on, and not even just losses, but bad losses, like, you know, we've seen a couple of Giants losses in a row now where it is bad. Like, just not even competitive football. And, you know, you see guys on the sideline that are clearly starting to get frustrated. There was the, I don't want to call it an altercation, but definitely like a heated conversation between Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton. And it seemed like a one-way thing. It seemed like Shepard was going after Slayton. And even coming out of halftime, you saw the, you know, kind of a heated discussion between Brian Daboll and Don Martindale. So, you know, I'm not one of those people that's gonna say fire Daboll, because I don't know what else he can do. I really don't. Like, is it kind of like, could he be doing a better job right now despite the talent deficiency? Yes. I mean, that challenge in the beginning of the game was horrible. Even like late in the game, they had too many guys on the field. Even like last week's game, they had 2 times where they went for it on 4th and 1, and they had 2 false starts in those situations. So just discipline things, a dumb challenge early in the game. Like, there are things Brian Daboll's doing. Even like, you know, I don't know if that was a Kafka thing or a Daboll thing, that 4th down play I talked about earlier, when it was a, you know, the 4th and 3, they ran that read option play that went for like 1 yard. So even things like that, where it's like, yeah, you can point to coaching and be like, that was stupid. But at the same time, I don't think this team was going to win this game. Even if you play this game like 100 times, the Giants probably win this game like maybe once out of 100 times. It just wasn't going to happen. So, you know, back-to-back bad losses. Of course, it was 30-6 last week against a pretty bad Raiders team. Then, of course, 49-17 here against the Cowboys. Next week, they are at the Commanders as 9.5-point underdogs right now, which is crazy because Washington on the road is 9.5-point favorites. It's like, you shouldn't see that in the NFL. Like, that is not that good of a football team. They actually lost today on a game-winning field goal by the Seahawks, so I'm sure they'll be hungry, looking for a win next week. It's just, what the Giants are putting out there right now is just not an NFL product. You know, like, I think the Tommy DeVito thing is a nice story, of course. You root for him, and it's great and all. But the guy is an XFL level quarterback. Let's just call it how it is. I mean, I'm not trying to shit on the guy too much, but like, Tommy DeVito is not an NFL starting quarterback. It should never happen. Like, sure, keep him on the practice squad. I get your first 2 quarterbacks got hurt, but, you know, I get the objective from above is probably not to even win games at this point. Like, I'm sure if you asked Joe Shane and he had to be completely honest, he's probably telling you, I want a higher draft pick at this point. But at the same time, if the Giants wanted to field a competitive team, there were guys like Carson Wentz sitting out there. Of course, he got signed this week to the Rams. But there has to be somebody out there that you could have signed or even traded for before the deadline, because before the deadline, you had the Jones neck injury before the deadline, not the ACL, but you still knew his neck was effed up. You knew Tyrod's injury history. The Giants really could have made a trade to get some type of backup quarterback in here, just in case Jones happened to hurt his neck again. Of course, it happened to be his ACL. And if Tyrod went down again, then yeah, like, who are you stuck with? And at that point, it's Tommy DeVito. So if you're playing for we want the highest pick, yes, this is the perfect storm. Have Tommy DeVito start NFL games for you, because you can't win games with this guy. All right, like, I'm once again not trying to be hard on him, but like, it's the truth. You just can't win with this guy. Almost a bad injury for Andrew Thomas. It seems like, thank God we dodged a bullet there. It looked like he got rolled up on in the first quarter, I think it was. He came back in the game, though, so luckily it wasn't bad. But when it happened, it kind of looked bad. And I was like, oh, man, like, this is the last thing we need, is this guy having a bad injury. He might be out part of next year if it was that bad, but thank God it seems like he's okay. And, there were some other injuries in this game, I believe. I'm trying to see who it was. Who was it? I think Cordell Flott maybe got hurt. I think it was Deonte Banks got hurt at one point, too. Cordell Flott with the shoulder, he was out. And I think Deonte Banks got hurt, too. So, nothing catastrophic, at least. Deonte Banks' ankle. Yep. So, nothing catastrophic. At least Andrew Thomas is going to be fine for the long term. Jalen Hyatt, too, with a concussion. As I mentioned, they took that deep shot with him early in the game. Got intercepted, but is what it is. So, yeah, I mean, you just wish it was more competitive. Like, once again, the entire saying this offseason by Giants fans, and even like the Giants themselves, was that they wanted to, quote-unquote, close the gap between them and teams like, Philly and Dallas, because the Giants have been non-competitive with teams like Philly and Dallas for the past few years, even last year. Like, the Giants, yes, they made the playoffs last year, had 9 wins, won a playoff game, but they were still not competitive with teams like Dallas and Philly. And if you can't compete with the top 2 teams in your division, where the hell are you going? So the whole thing this offseason was we closed the gap. But right now, the Giants have been outscored by Dallas this year 89-17, and we haven't even played the Eagles yet. So imagine how bad that's going to be. There's a chance Tyrod's back by that time, if they bring him back, which I don't know if they will. Not that it's going to make a difference anyway, because, listen, I mean, Tyrod's a clear upgrade over DeVito, but the way this team is right now, I don't see them beating Philly, whether it's, Jalen Hurts starting or Marcus Mariota. It really doesn't matter. Like, they have no chance to win that game, I feel like, or those games, I should say, plural. So 89-17, they were outscored by Dallas this year. This game plus the 40-0 in week 1. The gap has not been closed, and there has been a reality check with this team this year that they're just not that good. And, I understood why the Giants went not all in this year, but I understood why they ran it back, quote unquote. It was tough to move on from Jones. I get it. I didn't want to do it. It was tough to move on from Jones, though, right? I get it. But at the same time, it was going to be the best thing for the organization. I get why they brought him back. I get why they brought Saquon back. But at the same time, last year, if you really looked at it and you were completely honest with yourself, a lot of it was fluky. And the best thing for this organization was to rebuild. Now, even though we gave Jones the 4-year deal, really a 2-year deal, kind of a 2-year deal, whatever you want to call it, the Giants' hand will be forced to have a rebuild now, because it seems like this team's going to have a top 2 pick. I've yet to mention that the Cardinals won today. They came back and beat the Falcons. Arthur Smith, what the hell? But it's funny to watch them lose anyway. But the Giants right now, if the season ended today or ended right now, the Giants would have the 2nd overall pick in the draft. And of course, they're, the top 2 quarterbacks in this class are supposed to be very good. Drake May, Caleb Williams. So if things ended today, the Giants would have a shot at one of those guys. And I understand that the team is not perfect, and some fans have that philosophy of you have to build the rest of the team and then draft your quarterback, which doesn't make sense, because if the rest of your team was good, you would not be picking this high. So when you're picking this high and have a shot at a Drake May or Caleb Williams, you got to take it. You take the quarterback and figure out the rest of the stuff later. So it would be very irresponsible of the Giants, given Jones's ACL, given the multiple neck injuries, to not draft one of Drake May or Caleb Williams in this draft. If they happen to fall in love with Michael Penix, okay, fine. I don't love Penix as much as those guys, but still, you have to leave, whether it's the 1st overall pick or the 2nd overall pick, leave with a quarterback. The clock has to reset on this franchise. You can't keep running out Daniel Jones when he has this neck issue. You can't keep running out 35-year-old Tyrod Taylor. You can't do this stuff. Like, we've been through it enough as a fan base at this point. We got a taste of it last year. It was fun, but it wasn't a long-lasting thing. It was just like one of those things where it was lightning in a bottle. Everything broke right. The Giants won just about every one-score game, and they faced a crappy team in the playoffs in the Vikings. They beat them. But, of course, they had that reality check against the Eagles where they lost by like 50 points in the playoffs. So it was fun. It was nice, but it's over and done with. You have to rebuild this team. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's over. Rebuild the team. Get a quarterback. Hopefully improve the offensive line. Make smart free agent signings, not big ones, but smart free agent signings. You have to hit on these guys in the draft. And like, let's be honest, Joe Schoen's drafts so far, they don't look fantastic. I want to see the Giants draft history just to refresh my memory here. But, you know, you look at the first two picks of last year, Neal and Kayvon. I mean, Neal looks like a train wreck right now for a guy who was taken 7th overall. But Kayvon at least has shown flashes of like, okay, this guy might be like really freaking good one day. Wan'Dale Robinson, despite the ACL, he looks okay. Like, I think he could be a fine wide receiver too for a long time. Cordell Flott has shown flashes. Josh Izudu, who at the time was called a reach in the 3rd round. I can see why. He has not really produced so far in the NFL when given the chance. I think Bellinger was a fine pick for the 4th round, but definitely not like a game changer. Dane Belton I have not been too impressed with so far. Micah McFadden seems like a great pick. That's one guy they hit on for sure. Great value there in the 5th round, but DJ Davidson, McKeithen, Beavers, I mean, you know, nothing really from those guys. And then you have this year's class. Deonte Banks I've been kind of surprised with, like in a good way. I figured like as a cornerback he might struggle out the gate. And he's had his moments with struggling, but for the most part, I think Deonte Banks for a rookie corner has had a positive year so far, so hopefully that pick turns out to be a good one. John Michael Schmitz, I mean, yeah, he was hurt at one point, but I think as a rookie center, he's been okay. Like, I can't complain too much about him. Jalen Hyatt, once there's a real quarterback here, I think Hyatt can take off. Like, we saw what Hyatt did with freaking Tyrod Taylor. So imagine Hyatt if you had Caleb Williams or Drake May. Like, I think Hyatt can actually be a really good weapon for this team. Just like Wan'Dale, he's probably never going to be a number 1. Like, I feel like he's like too skinny for that. His routes aren't good enough for that. But Hyatt can definitely be a guy who is like that speedster wide receiver 3 in your offense. Like, you know, I don't know, who can I call him? Like a Will Fuller. Like, Will Fuller was a really good wide receiver 2 at one point for the Texans. I think he might have been a 1 for 1 year when Hopkins got traded. But you get the point. Like, he could be a very good player in this league. Eric Ray in the 5th round, he does not look that great. Trey Hawkins, I mean, there was a lot of preseason hype, but hasn't worked out yet. Jordan Riley had some hype, but, you know, he hasn't really played much at all. Javarius Owens has barely played at all. So, you know, the drafts for Schoen, there haven't been any, like, home run picks. I mean, sure, Micah McFadden probably. Kayvon, which, you know, it's the 5th overall pick. You should hit that pick, right? So Kayvon, he looks like a fine pick, but even like Evan Neal, if you miss a pick at 7th overall, yes, it's less damaging to your franchise because they already had, you know, 2 picks in the top 10 that year. So even though they probably missed on Evan Neal unless he really turns things around, at least they got Kayvon, who once again seems like a real player. So at least they got him. But hitting on the early picks, you have to do it. As I said, I like Deonte Banks so far. I like JMS so far. Jalen Hyatt, when the right quarterback gets here, he'll be fine. So it's like so far the Evan Neal pick is just the one that really sticks out. But it seems like the rest of Joe Schoen's early picks seem like they're okay. Right? Like, no superstars. I think Kayvon has a superstar ceiling, but no superstars in this, you know, from these drafts, except for Kayvon maybe. I think Deonte, of course, has a chance. I think John Michael Schmitz has a chance to be a starting center for a decade, hopefully, but no, like, quote-unquote superstars. Unless Kayvon, like, really takes off and shows consistency, which it could happen. I'm not going to rule that out. So, you know, my point is, though, there haven't been, like, any Micah Parsons or just someone like that, like a complete game wrecker, game changer, like no Jamar Chase, no CeeDee Lamb type guy. And, of course, that comes with quarterback play. Like, to get a great receiver, you have to have a nice quarterback, and the Giants don't really have that at the moment. But even when Jones was playing, we still did not see much from Hyatt. There was that one catch, you know, in Arizona, first play out of the locker room, where he had that long catch. But still, I mean, the Giants, The roster is just not good enough right now. And that's kind of what we were concerned about coming into the year. And with the schedule getting harder, but, it was just the perfect storm. The schedule getting harder, not being as good in one-score games. The injuries are bad this year. I mean, look, every team has injuries, but you look at the Giants, whether it's Andrew Thomas, Daniel Jones, Tyrod Taylor, whoever. Like, they've had Azeez Ojulari has been a nice piece for this team. I think he had a big stop in the first quarter when the Cowboys went for the fourth down. So, they've had important guys miss games this year. Even Adoree Jackson's been out with a neck/concussion in the past couple games now, and he's a pretty important piece. He hasn't played that great this year, but he's still your veteran cornerback that you would like to have out there. Yeah, I mean, look, there's not much else to say. We can go through the game, but what takeaway can you really have from this game? You know what I mean? Yeah, there were 2 interceptions. That was nice to see from Darnay Holmes. I think Bobby McCain dropped one. Cordell Flott had one. No sacks in this game, of course. Xavier McKinney had 8 solo tackles. Okereke had 7. Pinnock had 7. Holmes had 5. That's not bad for Darnay Holmes. But team stats-wise, it just gets ugly. Dallas had 640 total yards. 640 total freaking yards. The Giants had 172. The Giants had 61 passing yards. Dallas had 472. I mean, crazy. Rushing yards-wise, it wasn't as bad. 168 for Dallas, 111 for the Giants, 3.1 yards per play for the Giants, and 8.3 for the Cowboys. Not good, not good. But it seemed like Dak had all day to throw. Dak, besides the interception, which was a very bad interception given the moment of that game, Dak was incredible, over 400 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, the 1 interception. He was 26 of 35. Rico Dowdle ran the ball very well. Brandon Cooks in 2023. I mentioned in the preview that Brandon Cooks has looked kind of washed this year, but man, this was like vintage Brandon Cooks on the Saints type stuff. 9 receptions, 173 yards, and a touchdown. We saw CeeDee Lamb have that amazing one-handed catch. Lamb had 11 catches for 151 yards and a touchdown. We saw the Michael Gallup touchdown down the right sideline. Ferguson had a touchdown as well. It was not a fun game. It's just one of those games that felt like it was going on forever, and you just couldn't wait till it was over. Dallas also had 5 sacks. The Giants had none. It felt like Dak had no pressure out there today. It felt like Dak had all day to throw, and the Giants were just had just no way of getting to Dak at all. So just disappointing stuff. You'd hope that at some points you would get some pressure on the quarterback. Dak did a good job at some points of getting out the pocket, making throws, running the ball, doing what he had to do. But still, it was just ugly. Dallas held the ball for 37 minutes, 21 seconds. The Giants had the ball for only 22 minutes, 39 seconds. So the ability to sustain drives is not there. Dallas converted 6 of their 12 third downs. The Giants were 0 for 12. So 50% conversion rate to 0 for the Giants. I mean, that's pretty much the difference right there. Dallas was 1 for 2 on the fourth downs. The Giants were 2 for 3. I think a couple of those were on the final drive. 77 total plays for Dallas. The Giants only had 55. So 22 more total plays for the Cowboys. Not much of a surprise. I will say the Giants here, they beat the Cowboys pretty badly in total penalties. The Giants only had 2 penalties for 5 yards. Dallas had 9 penalties for 83 yards. So that's one area the Giants can say they beat the Cowboys in. And the Giants did have did have less interceptions. Only 1. The Cowboys had 2. One of those was Cooper Rush. But, yeah, I mean, look, there's not much else to say. I would love to sit here and really break the game down like I usually do, but, there's just not much to say about a game like this. It was a really good NFL team that was coming off a loss versus a division rival that was hungry for a win against a team that sucks. Let's be honest, the Giants are probably the worst team in football right now. I'm not even saying that to be funny, not saying that to be, dramatic. I think the Panthers are very bad, but at least they have Bryce Young, who is a first overall pick talent, and the Giants have Tommy DeVito. So that's a big difference right there. But I feel like Carolina, if they were to play the Giants right now, would probably win that matchup. I think the Giants right now, the way they're built, they can't compete with anybody. It's a shame. We'll see next week versus an easier opponent if they can compete. But, even the Commanders are they're not like a completely terrible team. They show flashes. It was a big drive by Sam Howell today to tie the game up late in the game. Clutch drive by him. But after that, you're going to have that game versus the Patriots, which may be the type of football that makes you want to like just, take your eyes out. Like it's just horrible football. Week 12, so a week before the bye, the Giants are home versus the Patriots. I don't see a spread for that game yet, but the Patriots go on bye. So the bad news is the Giants get Bill Belichick off a bye, which is probably not good. Probably not good at all. But, right now, I mean, the Patriots literally benched Mac Jones today with 2 minutes to go in the game. Like, it is so dysfunctional over there. Just about as bad as us. They have injuries too, of course. Matthew Judon, Christian Gonzalez, the first-round corner, is out. Kendrick Bourne was their wide receiver when he tore his ACL. So definitely some injuries for the Patriots. And with how bad Mac Jones has been this year, that might be like a 9-6 or a 10-6 final score. Like that's going to be very ugly football. I would still think the Giants lose that game, but like it's going to be ugly football. But I guess the big picture is the Giants have a top 2 pick, which can't be mad at. Strength of schedule wise, the Giants and Panthers are close, but the Panthers technically do hold the first overall pick because they only have 1 win. Not the Panthers. The Panthers pick that belongs to the Bears. It's always so confusing. But the Bears do hold the first overall pick, and we have to hope that Carolina can win a game or two. Like that's pretty much the only hope we have. And I do want to go through Carolina's schedule because I feel like there's not much of a chance of Carolina winning a game. I feel like maybe there's a game or two where it's like, okay, I could see it. But even next week, Carolina's home versus Dallas. They're 10-point dogs. They're at Tennessee after that, maybe. I mean, Will Levis took a step back today for sure. They're at Tampa after that. Tampa's had some games where they looked horrible offensively, maybe. At the Saints, I don't see that happening. Home versus the Falcons. I mean, the Falcons do lose to bad teams. I mean, maybe. Home versus the Packers. Maybe. At the Jaguars. Probably not. And then home versus the Buccaneers. Probably not. So, I mean, the Panthers have games on their schedule where it's like you see a couple of automatic losses where the Cowboys game they're probably going to lose and probably that game at Jacksonville. But the rest of these games for the Panthers, they don't look that daunting, right? Like they could beat Tennessee. They could beat the Bucs. They have them twice. They could beat the Saints. They could beat the Falcons. They could beat the Packers. And I really do hope that they give Bryce Young this like mental break because he hasn't played well and give Andy Dalton a couple starts. And I think right now it's not really that controversial to say. I do think that the Panthers are a better team right now with Andy Dalton. Like I think Dalton's not the answer, obviously, but Bryce Young is not playing good football. His pocket presence is terrible. So I would maybe give Andy Dalton a couple shots at it and make him the starter and see if that happens. But I don't know. We need Carolina to win. And because I would like to have the Giants to have the first overall pick and have their chance to pick who they want. I mean, some people have that perspective, like make the other team pick for you because, the Drake May, Caleb Williams comparisons, like they're close. Some people have May 1, some people have Caleb 1. Like, it depends who you ask. So some people have the philosophy of like, oh, just let the other team make the decision for you. But I would rather have the Giants get to make their own decision. I would rather have Joe Shane picking first overall and be like, that's my guy, I'm getting him, rather than take the guy that the Bears don't take. So that's how I look at it. And it sucks to root for losses. Like, you hate to be that fan, but at the same time, like, that winning does nothing at this point. I don't like the way they're losing. It's embarrassing, but at the same time, like, does it really matter whether you lose by 32 points today or whether it was 7 points? Like, yeah, you want to make it look more competitive, but a loss is a loss, There was that Pat Leonard tweet this morning how he basically said Joe Shane and Brian Daboll are under pressure on Sunday to start fielding a respectable, consistently competitive Giants team. Another massacre against the Cowboys will turn up the heat inside of a building where it's already getting uncomfortable. So you see the headlines out there. They're planting those seeds. And, I really don't think that there's going to be any, GM or head coach firing this year with the Giants. I don't see, because we did say the same thing with Joe Judge, right? But I think Brian Daboll, he's not Joe Judge level. I think Brian Daboll at least has shown that he could be a very good coach when you give him the right pieces. Like even last year, the Giants team was not good, but Brian Daboll got them to the playoffs. They won a playoff game. He was freaking coach of the year. So he's shown you that, yeah, you give me the pieces and I can make this work. But Brian Daboll right now is being given an XFL quarterback, an offensive line that's not good, a defense that just was out there too much, that doesn't have the talent. I think the Giants' secondary talent's not that great. There's a lot of young guys as well. So, like there's not much I can expect the coach to do. It's the same thing when people argue for Daniel Jones. Like, what do you expect him to do out there? There's no offensive line, no receivers, blah, blah, blah. You can make the same excuse for Brian Daboll. What can Brian Daboll do? Like, there's only so much scheming and motivating you can do to compete with a team like Dallas when their talent level's up here and your team is in the basement. Like, it just is what it is. Like that, we've seen this before with many different coaching staffs, whether it was Ben McAdoo in his final year, whether it was Pat Shurmur, whether it was Joe Judge or Brian Daboll. We've seen Giants coaches, lose locker rooms before, but have non-competitive losses because their team is just not good. I could see if the Giants had talent and Brian Daboll was, being a terrible coach, but they don't have the talent. I don't care how Brian Daboll can coach a perfect game, and like they're still gonna lose by 10 to 14 points in this game. It is what it is. Like, that's just part of it. So you come in as 17-point dogs. We want to be mad because we lose, but it was going to happen regardless. It just is what it is. I think next week should be more competitive. If they really get blown out at home versus the not at home, I think they're away next week, right? I'm pretty sure the Giants played at home last time. Yes, if they lose it's not as bad. Look, they can compete with Washington. I do think they can probably lose that game by like 7 or 10. Because right now, as I said, the spread is 9.5 right now. So they can make that game versus Washington look respectable, but I don't think they'll win the game. But if they happen to get blown out by the Patriots in week 12, like let's say Mac Jones comes in here and they beat the Giants like 36-3. That might be like the thing that gets me a bit concerned, because you can't lose that badly to a Patriots team that sucks. You just can't. So hopefully they keep that game competitive, but as I said, a loss is a loss, a win is a win. And I get it from Brian Daboll's perspective, though. Like, you want to keep these games close. You don't want to be on the hot seat. I get it. But at the same time, the team's not good enough. Like, what are you going to do? You see all these injuries. There was 3 guys that got hurt today. Thank God Thomas came back. He's going to be fine, it seems like. But there are just a lot of issues with this team. And, I get it. Brian Daboll hasn't been perfect. But what can he do? There was a picture. It seemed like it was a screenshot of the TV by Justin Pennick of Talking Giants. And there was a graphic up about how the Cowboys outgained the Giants. This was at one point during the game, so I don't know what it finished as. But at one point, the Cowboys were outgaining the Giants by 526 total yards. That was the largest differential in a game since 1962. So it was Packers at Eagles. 1962 was the last time there was a larger total yards game, total yards in a game discrepancy between two teams. So the Giants are out here setting records for all the wrong reasons, and it just is what it is. I feel like we have to get used to it. Like that's just kind of, it shouldn't be this bad going forward. As I mentioned, there are some tough games remaining on the schedule, but I would say the next 1, 2, 3, even, I don't know about at the Saints. That could be a close game, but maybe not. But the next 3 games should at least be competitive football. It should not look like this. If it looks like this, that's definitely concerning. But, the Commanders are not a great team. The Patriots suck. I think the Packers are not that good. So those are 3 teams in a row where, yes, the Giants probably lose all those games. Maybe they could beat the Patriots. But that should at least look kind of competitive. It should not be a blowout to all 3 of those teams. So hopefully they keep it close. I want to see Daboll keep his job because I do think he's a good coach. I do think with the right quarterback, he will thrive. And I just think he deserves that chance. Like, I don't know. Once again, we all speculate. We all have our conspiracy theories about who really wanted Daniel Jones back. There was an article that came out that Daniel Jones called John Mara last minute to get him signed before the franchise tag deadline and all that shit. But, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was a mandate from Mara to sign Daniel Jones, or whether it was Joe Schoen who loved him, or whether it was Brian Daboll. Maybe all 3 of them loved him. I don't know exactly what it is. But it'd be a damn shame if it wasn't up to Brian Daboll to keep Daniel Jones and he still gets fired. Like, that would be a damn shame. You would be wasting such a good offensive play caller, a guy who has a history of, turning these quarterbacks into, good players, having the best years of their career. Garrett Wilson, wow. He's already going off in the first quarter. I wish we had a guy like that. But anyway, it'd be a damn shame if Brian Daboll was the one who was the scapegoat because they brought a guy back that maybe Brian Daboll didn't want. You know what I mean? And it was always fishy last year when the media would ask Brian Daboll about Jones. even after the Jones playoff game where he played very well against the Minnesota Vikings and was like the only quarterback in a playoff game to have over 100 rushing yards and 300 passing yards. And Brian Daboll at the podium was like, yeah, he played well. Like, didn't elaborate or anything like that. He was just like, yeah, he was all right. He was pretty good. Like, didn't go above and beyond to compliment Daniel Jones. It was always fishy to me. But as I said, we'll never have the full answer to this. You can speculate all you want, whether it was John Mara and a mandate, whether it was Joe Schoen who wanted him and he had the final say. I don't know. I try to stay out of that stuff because it's just conspiracies and all that shit. But it would be a damn shame if Brian Daboll was like, the scapegoat. I would hate that. Like, I just don't want to see it. We've had, like 4 straight coaches where it was 2 years and out, or 3 straight coaches at this point. Like, Brian Daboll deserves more time. I do think last year it showed you that with the right pieces, that man can compete, and I would hate for them to break it up because of this one bad season where everything went the wrong way. Now, if the Giants draft a rookie quarterback next year, and let's say the rookie quarterback looks awful, and the team wins like 2 or 3 games, then yeah, okay, you can start to convince me that maybe Brian Daboll has to go, but not this year. I mean, nobody's winning with this team. I don't care who it is. You're not winning with this team. Give it another shot. Finish out this year. Hopefully the games are more competitive. I get that John Mara does not want to be embarrassed, but at the same time, the roster's not good enough. And Brian Daboll, whoever, they can't win with this team. So there's also a tweet from Pat Leonard that Tommy DeVito is getting an X-ray after the game. So, hey, maybe it's Matt Barkley next week. I mean, it can't get much worse. I mean, that's my reaction to that. But that'd be interesting if the Giants are down at quarterback number 4. So look, it sucks that it's pretty much mid-November and it's all about the draft, but we've been here before. We've had multiple seasons since 2017 where it's all about the draft. So trying to see if there's anything else on Twitter that I can go over real quickly. A lot of people posting about the draft order. The Giants are 2nd overall. I don't have much of an opinion about Drake May and Caleb Williams so far. Like, I have not sat down and religiously watched them and really dove into them that much, but they both look impressive. I mean, Drake May had a really impressive fourth quarter drive yesterday it was, right? Yeah, yesterday. I know it was against Duke and whatever, but still. I think that's it, though. I really have nothing else to say. I mean, it was expected. What did I predict? I think I predicted 37-10, so, I was a bit off there. I was hoping the Giants would have a better defense in this game, but it just wasn't the case. But yeah, just an embarrassing loss, and it's tough to watch these games, man. Once again, I don't blame people that don't watch this team at this point. I really don't. As I said last video, I wish I was one of those people that just could just turn it off in my mind and just not watch the Giants anymore, but I just can't do it. Something makes me watch this team every week. I don't know what it is. I just want to see what happens, and maybe it's like a train wreck that you can't look away from. Maybe it's like that, but I don't know. Once again, don't fire Daboll. Not yet, at least. Let's see how this plays out. You had a great season last year, a horrendous season this year. They cancel each other out, in my opinion. You see what year 3 brings and go from there. Hopefully, once again, with a new quarterback at number 2 overall, maybe number 1 overall, that can help turn this team around. I mean, everyone talks about C.J. Stroud and the changes he's made there. I mean, the Texans a couple of years ago were a team with no draft assets. They were going nowhere, and they turned their team around. They beat a really good Bengals team today. I think they're 5-4 now, right? The Texans, or 5-5, one or the other. I don't know, but they're right in the playoff mix. So sometimes all you need is a great quarterback to just come in here and turn things around. People start believing, yes, you need an offensive line. Yes, you need some playmakers. Yes, you need good defenders. Yes, you need good coaching around them. But as I said, I think our coaches are good enough. We saw our offensive line look competent with Tyrod Taylor in there. No, it wasn't perfect, but it looked competent. The Giants were able to push the ball downfield. They should have beat Buffalo with Tyrod that one game. They got stopped on the one twice, so that should have been way more points than it actually was. I know there's a lot of holes, but sometimes a great quarterback can help turn the team around. And whether that's May or Williams, whoever, hopefully that can happen for this team. This team definitely needs to be rejuvenated, and sometimes a great young quarterback prospect's what you need. Whether it's a Joe Burrow or a Trevor Lawrence, because when Burrow went to the Bengals, I think they were 2-14 the year before that. When Lawrence went to the Jaguars, they were 1-15. These were awful teams. So if a quarterback that is a great prospect, can go to a team and rejuvenate them. That's sometimes all you need to get going in the right direction. It's not going to happen year one. You know, even Burrow in year one tore his ACL. Lawrence was horrible because of the coaching situation there with Urban Meyer. But Devontae Adams, big catch. I'm trying to watch this game in the corner of my eye. But anyway, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it gets off to a little shaky start here, but if you see some signs, like even though Burrow got hurt and even though Lawrence looked horrible for most of the year, you saw signs that those guys just have it. I still remember this one play from Lawrence's rookie year, a Thursday night game where he rolled out to the right and threw like this 50-yard bomb to Laviska Shenault or somebody like that for a big catch. And I was like, not many guys are making that throw. Like, it was just crazy stuff from Trevor Lawrence. And even Zach Wilson's had those moments, but we know Zach Wilson's story by now. But Joe Burrow, you can tell right away, that man has it. He can change the franchise. And hopefully the Giants can draft a quarterback who comes in here and helps change the franchise. He can't do it alone. I'm not saying that, but the Giants have competent coaching for the most part. Don Martindale's proven. You have a coach of the year, Brian Daboll, who, as I said, with the right pieces, is fine. Like, he's a good coach in my opinion when he has the pieces. Your OC, Kafka, there could be some questions. Some of the play calls are very confusing at times, but they don't have many great pieces to work with there either, but still. Kafka was really good last year for the most part. Of course, fans wanted him fired halfway through last year, but I think to end the season we saw like, oh, well, this guy's actually not that bad. So, you know, we'll see what happens with Kafka and whatnot, but the coaching staff, for the most part, I'm fine with for now. The offensive line coach, yeah, okay, you can go. But special teams coach, you can go. But for the most part, the main three, like the head coach, the OC, the DC, I'm all right with those guys so far. Like, I have not seen anything yet where I'm like, they gotta go, I'm done, this can't work. Like, no, I'm not there yet. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully next week it's more competitive. But the good news is the Giants pick second overall right now. And if it ends today, the Giants hopefully get a franchise quarterback out of it. So, just crazy, though, how far the Giants have fallen. Like, you think about a year ago, the Giants were like 7-2 at this point, and things were great, but, you know, the Giants were not they weren't a real good team, you know? Last year was pretty lucky, as I said, so this year was a big smack in the face, and it shouldn't be this bad. It shouldn't be 2-8 type bad, but this team is just overall not that good. So, we'll see what happens. I'll talk to you guys Friday for the Commanders preview, or Saturday, whenever the hell I get that video up. But hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys next time.